Am I up there? I didn't think that was the right thing to do. Right. I mean, you can eat time. We got. I'll let them know that you're. That's what we count. Yes, you should be eating it.
What the best part? Is there maybe a band practice tomorrow? Okay.
Whatever they want.
All right, I'll wait. Thursday, my kid's supposed to come over.
Oh, okay. I mean, everyone wants aesthetic.
You probably know Matt.
I moved that just a little. That damn charger. You guys all just know it. Right here. You've seen it over the years. Yeah, but you've seen it over the years. You just know it's there. Yeah.
Anyway, it is, I just don't know exactly where.
Yeah, or even how it's working, what it is.
The thing is, you got quite the.
Yeah, it's so we don't want nice.
Right.
I think the problem is,
says,
How's it really? Just slow me down a little bit.
I don't know, that's just true.
Well, when you pull it up,
No, I see it. They have to wait.
So I said, hey, I'll take a break. Go to the park. Yeah. Walk back up.
Yeah, I wanted to start there, so we figure we can, so, yes, yes. Well, yeah, just see where it leads, whatever.
I don't know about you. Usually midnight.
Never, okay, not her.
That's the membership club, but there's always an eagle. See, if there's always one of them. So, and when, I'm surprised you don't put your profile, you still know, right? That's the strangest one of these falls. Because I've never met some drink. And you're the only one. Really? Really? Okay, so it's just my friends.
even more mess.
spelled her name wrong. That's how she wound up with one extra A.
Tell her Susie, what she messaged her. I get most excited about. Oh, yeah. the
Brussels sprouts are really good.
There's
How far back?
Yeah. Awesome, man.
The next day, at the Culver.
Welcome to being above third. I think that's right. Sometimes I remember what the rhythm of the song is. Right? I might remember the chords, not the rhythm, and I can really get the lyrics. I don't know why that is, but I can. Off the page, I'm still getting wrong. I've heard some drummers just keep a little like player, just play the song. We're doing song number one. Look, pop it in your ear. Yeah, because we don't have a set list.
Well, we do.
But, you know, we have a bunch of songs that we're trying out.
No, we need to. A few cut off. We did.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
But we didn't follow the set list.
Yeah, that is very true too. Maybe we should follow the set list.
That's something where the type of
He went out
song
to,
there.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
because all really all you do is the first four bars of it. We're doing slower right now. Right? That doesn't necessarily mean that's it. Talent might be excellent. It's crazy. Yeah, well, that sounds like something we should do.
at,
Tell her, let's
Learning things and all listening to them.
let's play them in tempos that they are. And let's have to slow them down. Let's work on it. I haven't had to drum. The last two bands we had, we used to do concerts. So we didn't have to tell the drum right.
Play the drum part for this.
Yeah,
Hit play.
press the button.
even get to the birthday party? You have the cake already?
Bring some. Is that a time?
I have that in an old wallet somewhere.
Have to get your boss to it. You know, if she dries it, she's gonna get the more likely. And then maybe she'll put Tesla charger in it. I'll send you the Tesla information. I'll send you the Tesla information.
Except when they were playing the sports the other night, Gary came and Scott Hughes,
36 cells. My house produces
walked
the
in
same
there
amount
and
as my car
they're got
uses.
tables up on, chairs up on the table and they're cleaning all the floors. And I'm like,
Oh, I don't know, but my 36 cell system with inverter was 50 years.
you know, so we ended up going to round table.
So, but
Yeah,
you need an inverter that's basically part of the system, so you can't so much go by self-price. You could divide
but it's
36
not
by
a
$50.
$5
That
machine.
would that I do.
And the
You know,
pizza's
but that varies a lot.
went up to
And I'm sure when they
$7.
find a municipality, they're like, oh, yeah,
The
you're so
wings
rich.
are $6.
Trying to get that to wrap out as soon as our, what is that? As soon as they step in, you could have had. And, yeah, they hear it.
Yeah, we got a
Definitely.
circle, we got a circle.
Yeah, it's jumping.
I thought it took it long.
That's still, you know, I still have projects where we had all the funding and we still have.
Yeah, so I'm not thinking that you're, it's just those are two things that you
Yeah.
still have to, and then you want to refresh.
And then she didn't want to talk back to everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So it brings people reward money to look at. Because we were talking this the other day, so we went to
The ninth,
July
July 9th.
essentially. We stopped in Ohio. We had three meals, but two snacks that we never would have done if we had some. We just would buy.
Yeah. Well, and the problem is we haven't done
We just saw.
anything.
Oh, so partially.
screen. All right, welcome to the Oroville City Council meeting, June 18th, 2019, where we are just reconvening from closed session where direction was given and no action was taken. Will you stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Remove your caps, please. Salute. Pledge. Looking for a motion to adopt the agenda.
I move that we adopt the agenda as printed.
Council members, please vote.
Well, it's not showing up unless it shows up on yours.
It showed up on my
It doesn't show
screen.
up on the big screen. The motion does
Motion
pass.
carries.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to presentations and proclamations. We have one presentation tonight from City Engineer Mike Massaro.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'd just like to announce that Councilperson Goodson won't be joining us tonight. She's going to be out of town on vacation. She just asked me to let the council know that.
Thank you.
Am I heated up? Yep. Thank you, sir. Okay, so this is a project that we've been kicking around at staff level for a little while now. So I want to bring it to council and get some feedback from you guys. So this is the existing condition of the divider between the trail, sidewalk, and Table Mountain Boulevard. It's a chain link fence, short chain link fence. It's about 2.5 feet high, and it's in pretty bad shape, especially on the higher end, the north end of it, where it's been hit by cars multiple times. It's in a little better shape down on the southern end, but still could use some work. So, been talking to some of my staff about some ideas about how to divide that and make it safe for pedestrians from cars, and we looked at metal post and cable, a wood post and cable. Both of these would provide a divider, but maybe not so resilient when hit by a car, and it would leave our staff with a lot of repair. What we were looking at that we kind of liked was the handrail shown here on the right. It's a steel handrail. It's a little taller, looks a little better. This is an example of a project we did in Citrus Heights on a Safe Routes to School project. So it's right up against the roadway. The other element is called the Midwest guardrail system. We see them all around, especially on curbs on highways. The advantage of that system, while not as aesthetically pleasing, is pretty resilient and could take some hits for some cars, especially if not direct. And when it is hit directly, you can replace it in sections. So what we were thinking is combining the two here, where the railing would be closest to the road, Midwest guardrail system, and then the handrail would be right up against it behind. And then the concept would be to paint it paint it black, so it kind of blends together a little bit better. And this is a construction detail, similar system that we're installing in Stockton right now. Project that's about to go out to bid. So there's a cross section of the rail on the left, and then a view of it from the trail side on the right. The cost to do this for that section of roadway, we estimate at about $136,000 for both railings. Design would be about 15,000, construction management around 20, so a grand total of, with contingencies, around 205,000 to install the system. It's a bit of a compromise between what we'd probably prefer in terms of aesthetics and something that would feel is resilient and could be survive some hits for some cars and be replaced by staff. That's all I had.
So what we're looking for, Mr. Mayor, is just some feedback from the council. Do you like any of the designs? If you don't like any of them, I'm not fond of any of them, to be really honest.
I have some council members in the queue. Councilmember Pittman, please.
Thank you. I got my button first. All right. I appreciate this project. Definitely got some good ideas. I like the black railing that's in your picture currently. I do not like the guardrail in front, just because of visual issue. My thought is there's a tall curb there, very tall curb. If we were to add, and this is just a suggestion, only suggestion, but if we were to add some parking lot concrete piers, or if you know what I'm talking about,
Like a shorter type K-rail, like
or concrete pylon, or the parking lot, the bollards in the parking lot where you park your car, if we added those to raise some height to the curb, and then use this black rail fence, but set it back, say 12 or 18 inches. So the car would have to climb a really tall curb before it actually hit the railing. That was just my thought pattern, because it kind of gives a little better space. And we need this to be an attractive thing, because this is an entrance into the community for a variety of reasons, to the river, both going and coming. And with that, you mostly see the black nice railing, whatever case it may be, but then the curb be taller so that even a car that would, and you got to remember they're coming downhill, so part of the reason they hit them is the fence is right next to the curb. So if it's set back, say 18 inches or so, I think that might be more palatable. And then the addition of at least 3 or 4 street lights so that it's attractive, because with lights, people will use it more often. And they can be the new solar lights. I saw a railing like this in Clear Lake, just going through there recently, and it's pretty much what they did. And they use the green light poles with solar panels on them, so that we're not looking at a lot of underground electrical. Those are just my thoughts and my observations, and maybe you have a better way to raise that curb up so that cars wouldn't be able to climb. I'm just thinking that adding it, those
No, I get what you're saying. It would provide a wheel stop before the bumper would get into the metal railing.
Yeah,
and then,
exactly.
So the railing wouldn't get hit as often.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agree.
And there's plenty of sidewalk there, so you back it off 18, 20 inches. Yeah, I'm sure it would be enough to lessen the impact of cars, because I think the chain link fence has been there for at least 4 or 5 decades that I know of, has just been hit mostly by cars branching up that had mirrors sticking out and other things sticking out. But thank you for the design. I appreciate the work effort.
Vice Mayor Thompson.
Is it evening or afternoon? Good evening, I guess.
Evening.
So I took some liberties, and I'm definitely not happy with any of these designs. I did a quick Google search and came up with, in a matter of minutes, a lot of designs that are already out there. So I know that we're not needing to reinvent the wheel. So I'm a little disappointed in my opinion, the effort that was put into it. It really matters to me for our community what this does look like. You know, part of the reason that we are swapping this out is aesthetics. And so guardrail, to me, does not say Oroville to me. That says, you know, highway.
And we're a community that we want to have a welcoming environment, welcoming look. And a guardrail to me doesn't, it looks like you're passing through at 65 as opposed to, you know, something that speaks of warmth, family, walk down the street as opposed to walk along the freeway. So anyway, I printed out some, and I can give you one, just some of the pictures that I have that are on my mind. Sorry. But there's potentially cinder block that you could do. That would be nice. There's also, when we drove back, we were up to the lake here, and on the, forgive me, the large green bridge that goes over Oroville, the name is Oroville Lake. Pardon me? Bidwell Bridge. On the bottom right is a picture of a very similar rail that is on that bridge. So those two would tie in, and that's also metal, so that if somebody hit it, you know, it is replaceable. But there's a lot of different options that, in my opinion, that we can go towards that would be way more aesthetically pleasing and welcoming and communicate.
Yeah, I agree with you on the bridge railing system. We looked at those. They are resilient, they are replaceable, and are more aesthetic. They're also quite a bit more expensive. So it was one we were kicking around at staff level. I didn't put it in the presentation just because it was about 3 times the cost per foot of what we showed. So, but these are great examples. Thank you.
So there's, and with that, I know there's the bridge one, and I understand that one looks, you know, that one could cost a lot more than, there's a couple options on here. There's 4 different pictures of steel guardrails, but definitely in my opinion, this has kind of become a baby of mine. I really want to see this look nice, and that freeway guardrail is something that's not something that's in my mind at all. And neither is the handrail. I can see it. If a truck were to hit that, we'd be in the same predicament as we are with the roundabout with railing that's bent, and the issue would be to fix that and replace that. So the cinder block, I know that we do have some masonry companies in town that potentially, we'll see.
I'd like to comment on that. Actually, these stackable stones are designed for homeowners themselves to do, so city workers could do this. Vice Mayor, are you finished with your
Yeah,
comments?
so I do appreciate you putting something together for us, but this is definitely not the direction that I'm headed in.
Councilmember Smith, please.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Councilman Thompson, and also, Legrone, Bill Legrone has also kind of reflected some feelings about the aesthetic aspects. And I appreciate the challenge of keeping the costs down, and yet you're dealing with 2 issues here, pedestrian way and also traffic vehicular. So there lies the challenge of something aesthetically pleasing that fits both, you know, mitigating traffic encroaching into this zone, and then also folks being safe walking down in the railing, whatnot. So with that being said, I did similar with what Councilman Thompson did, although I didn't go to the extent of printing out pictures. And right away, looking at other bridges and other pieces, the Jersey barrier system, which I'm sure we're all familiar with that. There's the one that you're going 60 miles an hour down the middle of the freeway, and that's when you hit it, it puts you back on the road. But there are those that are very aesthetically pleasing, where they cross bridges, more aesthetic, sensitive areas that you can install something like that. And then on top of that, I've seen a lot where they had a handrail that would then, accommodate pedestrians as well. And then again, it comes back to, if this thing is being hit continually, and even though we put a lot of money into that type of a system, I think over the long haul, the Jersey system, it doesn't break. It's concrete. It redirects that vehicle back onto the roadway surface. So it's then again, it's safe for the person in the car. It provides a measure of safety for the pedestrian on the other side, and they can be done aesthetically pleasing. I tried to find in the contract a lineal foot. I was going to do my own math, but I couldn't find how many lineal feet we were talking about here.
It's around, I think it's over 600.
600. So I know that there's a big, huge cost variation because they have the hooks where they hook in And, you know, you can get them in 10-foot sections, that type of thing. But it seems to me, I think the general, at least from where I'm standing, sitting, that aesthetics is very, very important here. And also public safety. And so somehow, again, you're tasked with bringing those two worlds together. But certainly, I'm not in favor of anything I'm looking at this point. But that's
Well, I
my
think
piece.
that's why one of the main reasons we wanted to bring it forward to get your feedback and just kind of let you guys know where we're at with looking at options and costs. And one of the things Bill Legrone and I have been talking about is maybe going back and looking at more an architect, working with an architect on it, and doing a more visual treatment, since that's the direction we want to go in.
Yeah, with those jersey systems, there's some that are actually very, very ornate. And it would seem to me, because they're in sections, they're easily, you know, repairable if they were damaged. And it seems to me like more could be done with those, and they would meet some of those aesthetic needs and also safety needs. And then you don't have to have two pieces, a railing system and a pedestrian railing system. It all incorporates into one unit, which I really thought would help with the overall cost. Because now you're not doing two fences, you're just, so to speak, two systems, you're just doing one. All right?
Councilmember Hatley.
Thank you. What's the curb height on that?
I think it's about 10 inches.
And, because I don't recall a whole lot of vehicles crashing into that. I mean, jumping that and going into there, just by the design of the road and the way.
Looks like most of the strikes have occurred at the top where the curve
Right.
is. Once it straightens out, it hasn't been as much of an issue further down the hill.
And in this project, is that gonna widen the walkway any?
No, if anything, it'll shrink the available area in the sidewalk. So if we're gonna do something on the hillside later on, to maybe move back some of that erosion or sediment and clean that up a little bit, that would be something separate.
Okay, but it
We've
will
also
be
talked about that.
ADA, it'll be ADA compliant?
Well, you know, I don't think that slope is technically ADA compliant right now. But it, you know,
I'm
it's
just
a legacy
looking,
issue here.
I don't want somebody to come along and then we do all this work and put all this money into it and then say, well, wait a minute, the sidewalk's not wide enough or whatever comes up. I
Right,
just
we would
wanna make
verify
sure
the remaining width of the sidewalk. On slope alone, though, I don't think we would meet ADA. Like if we were gonna design it today, it would need landings, every so often, to meet ADA at that slope. It doesn't have, you know, at that overall length, it doesn't have any landings.
Okay,
So-
but when we start doing anything to that area.
Right, you're often
Now, are
required
we
to
now,
bring it into ADA.
now do we
compliance.
have to bring it to today's standard and say, well, wait a minute, now you're altering what it was. It's sort of like a natural drain. The very second you put a piece of equipment on that natural drain, it's no longer a natural drain. So it's like, I just want to make sure that we're going to be covered on this so that we're not back in there going, oh, by the way, we're either being sued or the project's halted and it's going to be another 100,000 because we've got to now make it to today's standards.
Right.
So that's, I just want to make sure all that's covered.
No, we'll look at that. You know, we're still in the concept phase here, not in design, so we'll definitely look at
I
that
just-
before we get to
Just
that
something
point.
that I thought about.
Never know.
Thank you.
Councilmember Draper.
I noticed here on the fiscal impact, it says to be determined depending on council direction, et cetera. But what account would this money be coming from to fund this?
This money would be coming out of the RDA bond residuals.
Okay, all right, thank you. And to my way of thinking, I like that black handrail, but I also like Councilor Pittman's suggestion that some concrete be placed up higher so that it would not be as apt to be dented and run over. But I think it looks so much better than what we have now, and I'm concerned about spending a lot more money to make it more aesthetically pleasing to everyone. So to me, you know, that looks pretty good. Just my opinion.
Thank you. I believe it was Councilmember Pittman that said he's been looking at this chain link fence for decades. So have I. So with that in mind, I think that this is the one chance we're going to get to make this something nice. So I would hate to put something generic up there. So, I mean, safety, absolute, big concern. Aesthetics, yeah, big concern. We we have opportunity here to raise the bar. This is one of our main entrances, and we have a lot of commuters that come to Oroville to work at the county and at schools in Thermalito, a lot of these things, courthouse, and they drive downtown to get something to eat, usually. I would personally, I'm for making it more attractive. This is the only, we're not gonna be redoing this in 5 years or 10 years. This is it. So I personally, I'd rather not waste $200,000 on something that, a small percentage of the people are fine with, and whereas the rest of the town, wouldn't be happy with it. So I'd like to weigh a lot of the options. Vice Mayor Thompson has a passion for this, and he's been putting a lot of time in it. Mike, I would recommend getting with him and having him make some suggestions as well. And like I said about like these stackable stones, city workers can do those. Those are designed. They're very simple. It's like Legos, and it doesn't require a contractor. And if someone hit those, they come apart like a puzzle, and you just simply put in new pieces. So it's not like you lose the whole wall. Now, the top of the fence where you're saying that most people hit, I know the guy who hit that, and that railing came right through the cab of the truck and pinned him to the seat. So I don't recommend a chain link or railing. I recommend something that's going to break away if they hit, rather than penetrate whatever vehicle they're in or on.
So what I hear is that we're sending Mike back to look at various designs, and certainly any council member that has comments, please provide them to Mike. I do want to be cautious, because I think Councilmember Hatley is correct, and we need to look at that. So I don't want you to be surprised if we come back and say it's $1 million job because of the slope of the sidewalk. We'll look at that, but I wouldn't rule that out. I don't want you to be stunned if that's what happens.
We could look at that pretty quickly and figure out what we need to comply with regard to ADA, and just come up with a list.
I just want to make sure.
So we move forward with that as a constraint.
I want to make sure people aren't stunned.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Given the feedback that is pushing this more, towards the aesthetic, would the council be in favor of getting some proposals from architects to pull together some concepts?
A cost for a proposal would be
Okay.
acceptable to me.
But if I can say something from me.
Oh,
Request to speak.
wait a minute, Vice Mayor, Councilmember Pittman is in the queue.
Real quick comment, if we go down the path of a metal railing, it might be nice to, I believe the railing that we have at the roundabout is a wave wire or through it. It's not just a simple black metal rail. So-
Right.
And I'm not talking about the medallions that are on that one. I'm just saying something that kind of duplicates that, so we're not, too far off, if we go down that
Some
path.
consistency.
Yeah,
Okay, I got
consistency
you.
with the existing railing, that's all, let's mention.
And I appreciate the input for the aesthetics, but that railing at that roundabout's not working out very well.
No, it isn't.
So, Vice Mayor Thompson, please.
As far as the architect goes, I don't necessarily know a reason why we would need a design architect. I mean,
Just to provide, so kind of like we did, we did some graphics work with the railing and putting them together in a picture, and they're pretty good at coming up with concepts like this.
Just my thought is that
so you could really see the visual of how it would look when it's finished. It's a little beyond my artistic capabilities.
I understand, but my thought is, since there's so many of this already done in other cities, pictures, like I said, a million of them online. I'm not sure why we would need it. We could say that's a good design. How much would that be before we went out and
that we could
spent
absolutely do.
thousands of dollars for an architect to give us a stamp? Maybe if we had a couple different design options, and then at least, like, for example, I just gave, I think, 6 there on the paper. You know, how much would that be? You know, is there, could we contact, you know, I think these are really hard to investigate as far as the cost per foot, and we already know the feet, and to see if the council would approve certain one of these designs. You know, if one was $1 million, obviously we don't want to spend, I wouldn't want to spend $1 million on 600 feet, but.
What we'll do, Mr. Vice Mayor, is we will bring this back in the second meeting in July, and we'll ask Mike between now and then to figure out some different costs per foot, and also investigate the ADA issues that may exist out there. That way we can update you again in July, potentially give you price per foot and what different systems would look like, so that you can give a little more direction to us.
And a block one, like Mayor Reynolds was saying, that would be fairly simple to fix would be great, because we want something that if it gets hit 10 years from now, that we don't have to hire an engineer back to fix it or whatnot. Something that's cost effective, it's beautiful, but also down the long run, if we need to repair it, it's not going to bite us in the butt.
You may even be able to put in some sort of something with a stamped concrete wall or something like that, so that it, you know, it's not too expensive, but it would also, you know, gives a greater aesthetics to the area. So it's, we'll look at some different options.
Yep, and we'll bring back each of them with costs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Questions? Thank you, Mike. Okay, we're moving on to public communication. Is there anyone that wishes to address the council?
I have 2 speakers for non-agenda items. I have first Bobby O'Reilly and then the cameraman.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Good to be here. It's nice and cool in here, hot outside. My first comment, I just want to, again, bring awareness. I did write a letter to the city regarding constituents being blocked on social media. And there is a particular, one of the particular council members did unblock some constituents. However, the access those constituents has to the things they are posting are still not coinciding with the access others have due to the restrictions of the page. So I have a concern with that, and to see where the city was with that. And then my other comment would be, whatever you're designing with the guardrail, please keep in mind motorcycles, and anything wire with motorcycles does not make a friendly meeting place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Oroville City Council. I am the cameraman. First, I'd just like to start off on commenting about this guardrail. First off, Mr. Thompson, you did say that guardrail is not, you don't want it to look like a highway, but according to my map, this is actually a portion of a state highway along Table Mountain that this guardrail is along. So it is a highway, this road, but we can make it not look like a highway. And I personally prefer guardrail. I've seen how it protects cars, but if you want something that breaks away, there are plenty of other options out there. But my main concern is, well, if we're just going to spend some money on some rail, why don't we spend some money on what's on the other side of the rail? I don't know if you noticed, but the path that goes down that Table Mountain Boulevard that's going to be protected by this rail, it's kind of old, kind of had chipped in there. It could be repaved, cleaned up a little bit. I mean, it's kind of pretty much along the side. It's just pretty much a wall of dirt. Yeah, we could put some stones in there, make it look nice, put some flowers in there too, potentially. But my thing is, if we want to make it look nice and something that says Oroville. Well, if we go with stones or greenery, whichever one, why don't we make it into a pattern that says Oroville, or maybe because it's right next to a fish hatchery, why don't we do something, make it look like a river or a fish? You know, just an idea out there. And finally, with my 30 seconds left, I've always been sitting over there in the corner. I like that seat, little corner there for me to sit my backpack. But the last meeting, I noticed the sign there that says press room. Now, I have a press pass, so I'm wondering, can I just walk in and use that room, or is there a special procedure I have to go through? Because I just didn't want to walk in and get yelled at and potentially 602'd for doing that. But that's it. Thank you for my time, and try and stay cool out there.
Thank you. Any more speakers, Madam Clerk?
That was our last speaker, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on to the consent calendar. Looking for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent calendar as agendized.
I'll second that.
Motion carries.
Moving on to public hearings. Item number 6.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is James Hamill. I'm a managing director with the California Statewide Communities Development Authority. We're here tonight for the third time for the Sierra Heights Apartments project. This should be the last time before you, because this project is closing on Friday. The reason we're here before you is really a federal tax requirement for a public hearing where a project is going to be financed with tax-exempt bonds. This is for the Sierra Heights Apartments 40 senior affordable housing units here in the city of Oroville. As I mentioned, the financing will be closing on Friday. We were here in June of last year, and the TEFRA hearings are only good for 1 year, which is why we're back before you. The city is not responsible for any of the financing, any of the bonds, and it is not mentioned in any of the bond documents. This is merely a perfunctory requirement under the federal tax code and under our joint powers agreement with the city itself. So I'm happy to answer any questions that the council may have on this financing or the project itself.
Are there any questions from the dais?
Yeah, and I'm just looking at overall general, but essentially your project is funded up to $15 million. And there are 40 units that are going in. So if I just quickly do the math, and we're basically looking at each unit's around $375,000 per unit. Is that a realistic number to use?
Yeah, the actual bond amount is going to be about $8 million. We TEFRA over that amount just in case there are cost overruns to that. So the cost is significantly less than that number that you mentioned there.
Okay. What, do you have a rough number? And the reason I'm asking this is because we have a housing crisis in our community, and I just wanted to kind of get a ballpark. Your units are basically...
My understanding, we're not the developer, we're the state agency that's managing this, is that they are between $175,000 to $180,000 per unit.
Per unit, okay. In terms of construction costs?
In terms of construction cost. And that is significantly lower if you go to the suburban and the urban areas. You're getting into $400,000 to almost $700,000 a unit that you're seeing out there.
Appreciate that information. Thank you, sir.
No other questions from the dais? No questions from the public?
Just real quick, how much does this go into meeting the low income as far as our requirement?
It's part of the equation.
It certainly is. I mean, so we need it, bottom line.
We need it, and I think it's very valuable to our community.
Yeah.
Did you have something to say, Amy?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Eric, the RENA numbers, I think of what you're referring to, this project is all low and extremely low units. The former RDA housing set aside, which is now the Housing Program Fund, is is actually doing a loan in the amount of $660,000 so that we could actually fund 2 extremely low units. And it's for 55 years affordability, and all of the other units are low income that are below 50% and below. So these definitely help us with those numbers.
Great.
So I know council knows this, but the RHNA is a Regional Housing Needs Assessment, and we're given numbers to try and achieve, which actually Oroville's done a very good job of, but are fairly unrealistic numbers because of the price of housing.
These are for seniors.
Correct.
What's the criteria for being a resident?
To be a senior, they have to be low income, so they'll be income qualified. There's an annual income qualification to make sure they maintain affordability. We will have annual inspections, both the units and the property, and then as well as their actual files. They'll pick a random amount based on how large the project is, of how many individual files, where we'll look at their income to make sure that they remain affordable. But that's basically it.
So the original qualifier, if they move someone in with them that's not qualified.
They're not allowed to.
Okay, thank you. Looking for, are there
At
any
this
public
point, Mayor,
speak-
it's appropriate to open the hearing. There are no speakers, so you can open the hearing and then close it, but we officially have to open it.
Okay. At this point, we're going to open the public hearing on this item.
Are no speakers?
There are
You
no
can close
speakers.
public
No
hearing.
speakers?
No speakers.
Last chance. This item is closed for public hearing. Looking for a motion to adopt item number 6.
I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution number 8787, approving the issuance of bonds by the California Statewide Communities Development Authority not to exceed $15 million for the benefit of Willow Partners to provide financing for the acquisitions, construction, and equipping of a 40-unit senior multifamily rental housing project, generally known as Sierra Heights Apartments.
Second that motion.
Motion carries.
Okay, item number 7, adoption of appropriations limits for 2019, 2020. Is anyone speaking on this bill?
Now, this annual appropriations limit is something we do every year to meet a state controller requirement. It's just pretty standard. It needs to be a public hearing.
Okay. So having no speaker on this, we're going to open this for public hearing.
There are no speakers.
Last chance. No speakers on this item. Now closing the public hearing. Looking for a motion to adopt item number 7.
I'll move that we adopt resolution number 8788, a resolution of the Oroville City Council setting the appropriations limit, Proposition 4 for fiscal year 2019 and 20.
I'll second that.
Motion carries.
Moving on to item number 8, preliminary budget. Ruth, did you have any comment?
No, I just wanted to point out that there were the major highlights of the year that are outlined in the staff report.
Okay, thank you.
There are 16 new positions budgeted with the new sales tax measure money.
Great. All right, I'm going to open this item up for public hearing. Madam Clerk, are there any speakers on this item?
We have one speaker on item 8, Bobby O'Reilly.
Good evening again, council. I just want to bring to your guys' attention something for a future years of budgeting. So we have I am one of the parks commissioners for the city. We, on a few of our understandings, are supposed to make recommendations towards issues of parks, trees, and museums in the budget. However, our meeting was canceled, this last meeting, and rescheduled till after it was canceled because of the issues going on with staff working on the budget issues, and rescheduled for after the budget is completed. My problem and my concern with that, as well as other park commissioners, is that if we're waiting until after the budget is complete, then we don't really have suggestions or recommendations for the budget for the parks, trees, and museums. So just for you guys to think about, and to put out there for you guys for the next budget terms. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, what I'd like to do as we move forward into the future is kind of restructure what we're doing here at the council a little bit, because I think there are some things that probably get missed from time to time, and that, you know, we don't have enough input from council on, including the budget. So what I'd like to suggest that we do is, beginning the second meeting in July, that we start turning that into more of a work session and a study session, so that we can go back and go over this budget. I'd like to go through this budget one department at a time, so that the council has a thorough understanding of what is in the budget and what is not in the budget, and what are the roles and responsibilities of different parts of the city. I'd also like to see us start talking about future items as we move into the future, because I would really like to have more input and feedback from the council. So this is something I'd like to do. I'll bring an item so that the council can provide further direction on this, but as we move into the future, I think it's going to be really necessary that we get a lot more input, especially considering that Measure U is coming about, and that the council should be fully aware of what we intend on doing with that money, what the revenues are that have been received and projected, and what the expenses are that we are expending through that. We do have our oversight committee, which we would certainly invite them. We'd also invite the Parks Commission to be a part of this so that everybody can participate. But if the council's interested in something like that, we'd like to start changing up our format a little bit.
Well, that sounds good to me. I think that it's easy to take for granted that we're all knowing what's going on when you work on stuff every day. I know that I think that everyone has went over it, so I would encourage that as well. Please get involved. So if there are no more speakers on this item,
There are none.
close the public hearing at this point. Thank you. Looking for a motion to adopt item number 8, preliminary budget.
I'll move that we adopt the preliminary budget as presented for 2019-2020.
I'll second that.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to reports, discussions, and correspondence. Are there any announcements from the council?
Is this committee reports that you're doing?
No, council announcements.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I believe we can also include committee reports under this section as well.
Okay. Councilmember Draper?
Okay, I was absent from the last meeting, and it was because we were in Rockwall, Texas, attending our granddaughter Chloe's high school graduation, and it was most excellent. And I did post about it on Facebook, and it was public, so everybody who wants to see that can see it. And meetings I attended since last I was here, May 22nd, I attended the Continuum of Care meeting in Chico. June 13th, I attended the Haven of Hope on Wheels ribbon cutting, and that was really exciting. It was nice to see the mayor there also, and Councilor Hatley, and Councilor Smith, and Councilor Goodson. And on June 14th, I attended the opening day of the Haven of Hope on Wheels at the Open Door Church on Washington Avenue. And it was really neat to see a lot of homeless people that were taking advantage of the opportunity to have a shower, to get clean, and to do laundry. It was just really, really neat. And I'm really thankful for Pastor Kevin Thompson and his vision and hard work that brought this about. June 17th, I attended the Continuum of Care meeting in Chico, and we were all very excited because the point in time survey results were released yesterday. And these are the numbers for all of Butte County. Unsheltered, 891, sheltered, 420, FEMA sheltered, 993, and the total count for homeless in Butte County in 2019 is 2,304 individuals. And we were reminded that this count is just a snapshot of a 24-hour period. It's not a real accurate, comprehensive count. And one of the reasons is that they don't include the numbers from Chico State, Butte College, the high schools, or any of the junior highs or elementary schools for the homeless individuals and families that they have. So this does give us an idea, but it's not the whole picture. Another bit of information that I thought was really significant is that 71% of the homeless individuals interviewed lived in Butte County when they became homeless. So we can't really refer to these people as transients because they are Butte County residents who have fallen on hard times and are no longer in a home. And we were told yesterday by Jennifer Griggs, the coordinator, that they did not get a count from the Oroville Rescue Mission, and apparently they chose not to participate for some reason. If anyone would like to see the 2019 PIT report, it can be found online at buttehomelesscoc.com. And it goes into a lot of detail, and it's really interesting. And of course, we know a lot of funding for our area is contingent upon the numbers of homeless that we have. On June 17th, I attended the NAACP meeting here in Oroville. Sue Hildebrand spoke about her vision for the county and her campaign for District 4 on the Butte County Board of Supervisors. Charles Withune also spoke about ways for the police to have better communication and interaction with the community. I'm also on the OPD Meet and Greet Committee. We're getting ready for that event on July 13th at Martin Luther King Park here in Oroville. I'd like to publicly thank Dax Downey of Green Line Cycles. He is in Chico now, not in Oroville any longer, but he graciously offered to donate 2 bikes for the kids that come to the meet and greet. And we really appreciate his support on that. I also noted that a cooling center opened in Chico on June 10th at the Jesus Center so that homeless people can get out of the heat. And we know it's not just a matter of comfort, it's also a matter, oftentimes, of life and death. People can become severely dehydrated. And I'd like to know what our city administrator has going for a cooling center here in Oroville, or if this is on your radar.
Tom?
We haven't really talked about one except to the extent that we talk with PG&E in terms of the energy outage. So we may talk about continuing that facility, which was at Harrison.
Okay.
We haven't discussed it at any length.
Okay. If you go outside in the heat of the day when it's 100 degrees or higher, you may be more motivated to see what can be done for a cooling center for these folks, because it's getting pretty hot.
True enough.
Thank
True
you.
enough.
And that's all for me.
Councilmember Pittman?
Just a couple comments, and maybe these items can be referred to the executive committee, or maybe the council has a better assignment for them. Or number one is, I think we need to have a council policy discussion on the potential upcoming power failures, and the things that we need to do. And I'm suggesting this at a subcommittee level because there's quite a long list there, from putting battery backups in streetlights to potentially powering the municipal auditorium as a cooling center or some kind of center. And I'm talking about a generator setup, and having some plan or strategy to deal with it, because as we saw the first one, that's only the first of many to come. And I know that our community, in terms of private enterprise, had all kinds of things, from reefer vans brought into stores to store their cold supplies, to a variety of things to be done. So it might be nice at a subcommittee level, and maybe the executive committee is the best place to tackle this topic, to actually put together some policy directions to bring forward to the full council in terms of that activity and preparedness necessary, because we've never had to prepare for this before, but I think we better get ready for it. That's one item that I'd like to suggest that we put on the agenda for a subcommittee. The other one is either potentially a subcommittee of the council, or maybe again, wherever they want to assign it, is to actually look at some of the policies that are out there in dealing with the people on our streets, whatever the case may be. I know there's a pretty successful program up in Marysville, Washington, that is working on that. And I'm not trying to throw it to staff to look at it, but I think it'd be great for the city council to have a subcommittee to at least entertain some of the suggestions, to go forward with that, so that we, have some kind of a plan and some way to tell our business people, we got something coming forward, whatever it may be. And I think now's a timely time to do it, because we do have additional staff coming on board with the city, and it'd be nice to have somewhat of a plan or policy to make a change, because clearly we've got to make a change, and we got to get our parks back, and we got to get our streets back. So I'm just suggesting those as two items for agenda size for a subcommittee.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Councilman Pittman as far as agenda sizing those items. In fact, he and I did talk right after the scheduled power outage by PG&E that we certainly need to address some concerns that were raised by constituents, and even my own, myself included, experienced, completely blacked out intersections. So there is a concern there with our lights, our traffic safety lights continuing to be operational. In particular, if we had an extended outage, as PG&E has potentially warned us could occur, so then those battery systems may not be adequate. And so that's a great concern, a public safety concern.
If I could, this is probably something good, Councilman Smith, that would be for the executive committee, because there is most of the lights in town are not ours. I mean, number one. Number two is there's tremendous liability when we start doing certain things. So this is something we should probably discuss and see what all the parameters are for that. But it is a good idea.
And then just to dovetail on, and I appreciate that. And the other piece would be to perhaps look into working with PG&E, because they have provided this cooling center. I don't know if there's some collaboration that we can do with them, which goes into the suggestion about the municipal, perhaps the PG&E may be willing to underwrite that. Just some thoughts in that respect.
The municipal auditorium we've done this, and what we got last time was a lot of vandalism. We have invested way too much money in there right now, and I understand the need, so I think we need to find, a tent would be nice if we could do some sort of a tent type of a setup. But last time we had fire extinguishers set off in there. We had other damage done because we don't have the staffing to sit there and make sure that people don't do these types of things. So if I could, we've invested a lot of money into that building and continue to. I'd like to steer away from that and maybe back to the executive committee or another committee and have a discussion about what I did see we're doing in Chico, was putting up a large outdoor rental type tent with some cooling capabilities to it. So maybe we can look at something like that and have a further discussion.
Yeah, and I have some other. Oh, go ahead.
I piggyback on what he's saying. PG&E needs some good publicity, obviously.
Yeah.
So I think we ought to pressure them to help us with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not asking for any, I'm just saying I think we need to discuss and have some discussions in committees, because these are certainly, you know, not going to go away. And that being said, we do have a couple of private cooling centers. I believe the senior center offers some hours right here in downtown, and also the library, our public library. And then there's one other and then, then Bobby Jones, the African American Family Cultural Center, they've extended also to folks looking for cooling centers. So in the interim, between now and when we, you know, get that together, there are some places that are available for people. And then continue on with that theme of people that may find themselves in a compromised or a homeless situation, and not to repeat everything that Councilwoman Draper has said, but just for contrast with the PIT results, that's the point in time, that's where people were counted in that moment, and that's just, as I think was already clarified, that's just one analysis of numbers to give us an idea of the number of homeless folk. But again, as a comparative for us to get a feel of numbers. So Chico, they counted 389, this is unsheltered, 389 people. In Oroville, 316. So not a big difference considering impact when you look at percentages. They're 100,000 plus, we're a little over 20,000. So Oroville certainly has a far greater impact when it comes to homeless folks on the street as opposed to our sister city to the north. That being said, I was very appreciative of the continuum of care and the new Supernova that's coming out. And any of our nonprofits that are interested in making application for that Supernova, you have until July 9th in the afternoon to get your application in. And please, 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 if you're at all considering, if you're a nonprofit, we need you. The city needs you to, again, have that public-private relationship, because we need solutions, as already been expressed, with dealing with homelessness in Oroville. And so there are dollars that are available. And again, going back to the continuum of care, they have made special consideration, because they have a matrix that they use when they evaluate those grants that are submitted. And Oroville gets an extra points by virtue of being in Oroville. Because they've recognized the fact that, you know, we have not had full consideration over this issue. So I'm appreciative of the continuum of care putting that as a part of the new Supernova grant. That also being said, I had a meeting with our librarian here, our Butte County Public Librarian, and she just wants all of us to know that she wants to collaborate, work with the city, that they have meeting space available, and that they're a part of our community as well, and they just want us to be aware of that. So I just appreciate kind of that olive branch of extension, reminding us that we have a beautiful public library right here in town, and they extend that offer to all of us. Then the other piece, two more things real quick, tourism. In 2020, I believe, the TOT comes up for evaluation. It was a 5-year deal. That is the hotelier tax. And a lot of those dollars are disseminated by Explore Butte County. And they have, if you haven't already done so, go on the internet, the website. Beautiful, well put together website. You can make a hotel reservation from that website to virtually any hotel here locally. They've done a fabulous job. With that, just recently, they hosted some 30 delegates from 30 different nations coming. They went and toured our fish hatchery. They toured the forebay, and they were very impressed by what they saw here. So that's great. We might have some folks from other countries coming to visit, of all things, Oroville. And so I just appreciate all the hard work that Explore Butte County, underwritten again by the TOT tax. And then finally, the ODBA is, I went to their meeting, and they're just looking forward to the 20th, which that will be the official day marking when the BID comes into effect, which is, of course, the Business Improvement District for all things downtown. And so I'm just very, very optimistic about the great and wonderful things we're going to see with our downtown in Oroville coming alive. And I appreciate all the hard work that those folks have done. Bud Tracy and Brian and many others that have worked so hard. Tracy Grant, you start naming names and then you feel obligated to name them all, but they've just done a phenomenal job. And so we're just in full support of that.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith, I'd like to congratulate you on your success on continuum of care. I ran into board members today, and they were on and on about how amazing your input is and how your input has changed the landscape of their thinking at Continuum of Care. Thank you. And as far as a cooling center, I'd like to recommend Southside Community Center. That's a big, beautiful building there, and it always seems to be very cool when I'm visiting. I did something that was very fun today. I go to quite a few of these things as well, and it's always a lot of fun. But today was especially fun for me. I went over to Nelson Avenue School, the Butte County Office of Education, asked me to speak with several elementary school students, couple hundred, I guess there was, about healthy meals during the summer. And it was a lot of fun. I had some really tough questions. What happens when you accidentally kill a ladybug? And I was able to answer that. And but that is one of the things that was really fun. You get to be involved in a lot of things that you wouldn't normally see without being on the council. Thank you. Councilmember Hatley.
Thank you. Last night I went to the Veterans Memorial Park meeting, and it was a pretty short meeting, but what happened is, and I have 3 photos here, there is a sculpture that will be placed there, and it'll be out of bronze. Right now it's in the clay form, and it's Bugler from World War II and that. And so I'd like for the city to keep these pictures and put them somewhere that anyone wants to see them. But there's a process that it goes through that a local artist is doing the clay, and he spent, I can't remember, I'm sorry, it was several hundred hours just getting the M1 Grand rifle that is on the Bugler's back perfect. And he did it from photographs, and I don't know if he actually had one that he found from one of the people that, one of the veterans, but anyway, this thing is going to be going down to Berkeley, where they will cast it and make it into the bronze figure, and then it'll come back, and then he'll do all the finishing work on it. But it's really something, and it's one of a couple of different statues that are going to be in the Memorial Park Cemetery up here for the veterans. But it'll be placed on granite and bolted deep in the earth and concreted in, so just wanted to pass that along so everybody knew what was coming, and it will be, and they're going to have a shade structure over some of these so that people can enjoy them year round. That's it.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Thompson.
Before I get to my little announcement, I think maybe the PG&E and the power outage, possibly bring that back, because I think it'd be good to discuss it as a committee, as a council here. But I think it would be important just to comment, I guess, to announce. I'm not sure we can necessarily discuss it, but I think maybe we should work with PG&E because, when the power went out, there wasn't any wind. I'm out in Thermalito. There's barely any trees where I live. So from my understanding, the power outages is for mountainous areas, and we're down in the valley. So I think there could be maybe something worked out with PG&E to not shut off unnecessary areas that don't, a lot of communities down in the valley here had power shut off, and we're like, there's no wind, what's going on here? So if there's something that we could do as a council to mitigate that, because if this is a future item that's going to happen, then PG&E needs to do their part in reassessing the lines of where they shut power off so it's actually viable and actually appropriate as opposed to frivolous.
We did have that discussion with PG&E, and I think it probably is appropriate for the council to bring back Dan Blair, who's unfortunately for him, because it's not him that's doing it, he's representing the company. But his explanation was that his transmission line that feeds the other lines that was in jeopardy of wind. But I tend to agree with you, Councilmember Thompson. I didn't see the need in this case, but that's just me, and I'm uneducated on it.
So I would like in the future then whatever is going on with that transmission line to be mitigated, or power to be circumvented around it so that the power for the threatened areas don't need to have their power shut off for no reason.
I agree with you, and I do think it'd be worthwhile to have Dan Blair come back. He was going to talk to us before. Now that we've gone through it once, and as has been indicated, apparently they're talking about doing it more frequently.
Well, and have him be prepared for the technical questions, because the actual power line that started the campfire is right up here on Orange Avenue. That line didn't get shut down. That line feeds San Francisco. Yeah, railroad goes right next to your church. And that's the one that was the problem. Not the lines downtown Oroville at the State Theater. When we're all in there watching a show, and it was the best movie of the whole show, and they shut us off, which we've got to replace some batteries on our emergency lighting in the State Theater. I mean, that's why I say there's a whole cadre of things that go on this list, but I agree with Vice Mayor Thompson. They've got to get a little more containment over what is turned off, especially the wind was blowing during the day, and when the nighttime came, the wind quit, and that's when they shut us off. Didn't make a lot of sense.
I personally think they're doing it to prove a point, and as I've actually written several letters to our representatives saying they're turning us into a third world country where you can't count on the power.
Vice Mayor Thompson, did you have anything else?
Thank you. Just to announce another one of my little pet projects is the billboards in 99. So I'm appreciative of Councilman Smith with the chamber working with DWR. It seems like the holdup is on their end and not with Eric and the chamber. So I'm looking forward to see those billboards redone and represent Oroville on Highway 99. So that was at our OEA meeting on Wednesday.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith?
They will look beautiful when we finally It's a learning curve working with government entities, believe you me. Oh my goodness, DWR, they're good people. That being said, I just wanted to add again to the utility kind of just conversation. So grocery outlet, they had to bring in staff, a refrigerator truck. They had to work through the night loading all of the refrigerator because they had no battery, a generator backup. And that's just one retailer. And then they had to spend the next day, of course, reloading all the refrigerated items back into the store. So that's just one grocery. That's pretty significant impact. They couldn't open. They had all the staff. You just do the math. It's pretty horrific. So, yeah, we certainly need to have that conversation.
Okay, future agenda items. Is there anyone that wishes to have anything put on the agenda?
I would just officially, if we can bring it back with the PG&E representative, I think that's I don't want to delay until the next power outage to discuss it officially. So I would like, if somebody could second that to be brought on the next council meeting. So
I'll second that.
Thanks.
I'll reach out to Mr. Blair tomorrow and see if we can get it set up for you as soon as possible.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Administration reports. Madam Clerk.
Yes.
I'm just teasing.
You have in front of you your monthly
Miss-
reports.
Ms. Duncan. Mrs. Duncan. Chief.
You have your monthly reports on the dais in front of you, along with the council attendance log.
I'd just like to hear you
was asked
guys
for.
talk.
And that I have nothing else to report.
I do have a question on page 5, on the third paragraph. It mentions tenant improvement for Family Dollar. Is that a new store? Does anybody know what I'm talking about? In the Feather River Boulevard next to Goodwill?
My understanding, I'm Wes Irvin, I'm here for Leo this evening. My understanding is that it is going to be a new store next to Goodwill.
Oh, thank you, appreciate that.
We've recently approved a sign permit for them.
All right. Okay, cool.
Mr. Cole. Mike. Okay. Well, with that, I guess this adjourns the meeting. Next meeting will be July 2nd. 2019 at 5:30 PM. Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.
Family Dollar, never heard of them.